Well, hello everyone. So I know I have been absent from this channel for a long time, but we're not going to talk about that. Anyways, back now with new content. Now I'm going to be talking about like movies and TV shows and stuff and whatever else I feel like it because if y'all don't know, I do have a media studies degree, so I guess I'm going to use that. But today, the movie I'll be talking about is called Tusk. And I don't know if y'all have seen this. It's an A24 film. I think it's probably one of the first A24 films that I've seen. But do y'all remember when Netflix used to be like, they used to have like random niche or like those artsy type of movies on there? Good Netflix days. But I remember seeing this back then. But anyway, more about Tusk. Tusk. It's a 2014 movie starring Justin Long, Michael Parks, and Kevin Smith. There's also appearance by Johnny Depp in there. Like I said already, it's an A24 film. And fun fact, when I looked up this film to try to watch it again, under the genre, it was listed under horror, but also a twisted walrus tale. So, if you're wondering what the movie is about, it's a twisted walrus tale.
That's the whole point.
But anyway, that's really all they about. I'm gonna get into. If you want to know more, Google's free. But anyways, now I will get into what happens. And by the way, if you see me looking down, I'm looking at my notes. Oh wait, by the way, I also just want to point out that for some reason this movie says it is based on actual events. Yeah, I'm gonna need somebody to do some research into that because what do you mean? But anywho, we start the movie with our main character Wallace, and who's played by Justin Long, by the way, and Teddy, which is the dude from The Sixth Sense. And they are having a podcast radio show type thing. They're laughing it up. And apparently, like the gist of their podcast is they, I guess, watch like these weird videos on the internet and they do some type of commentary on them. I don't know. It's kind of given like it's that show that used to be on MTV all the time, every day, every second of the day. Ridiculousness. It's kind of like ridiculousness vibes. And the movie starts with Wallace and Teddy watching a video where a kid is like playing with a samurai sword and he accidentally chops off his leg. And they call him the Kill Bill Kid. And I guess it was a video that's going viral on the internet. So they're laughing at it, hooting it up, whatever. And then in the next scene, Wallace is planning on going to Canada, where this kid is from, to like do like an exclusive interview with him. Um, so boom, next scene. Wallace is traveling to Canada, talking with the TSA agent, and basically just giving him, this is where we get like the background on the type of podcast that him and Teddy have. And he's basically just telling this TSA agent that their podcast is called The Nazi Party, because basically Wallace goes and he finds these weird or interesting people and like gets videos of them and talks with them, and Teddy doesn't have any context, so he does not see the people beforehand, and then I guess they watch it together and have commentary on it together. Definitely 2014 humor right there. But anyway, so he tells the TSA agent that's why he's there in Canada, to meet with this kid, do an exclusive interview with him for the podcast. So the next scene, Wallace pulls up to the kid's house. The Kill Bill Kid is what they refer to him as in this movie. And he notices that there's a funeral going on. And of course, he's confused. And he realizes that the Kill Bill Kid self deleted himself, um, with the same sword, by the way, because I guess he was getting a lot of like internet hate and bullying because of his viral video. So, like the compassionate person that he is, Wallace is very upset because he flew all the way to Canada. The tickets weren't cheap. He was going to have this exclusive interview with the Kill Bill Kid that not even Oprah or Ellen we're gonna get, and basically the kid wasted his time.
Couldn't hold out for 2 more days. Selfish little peg-leg piece of shit.
So in the next scene, we see Wallace at a bar. He's just calling Teddy, basically updating him, like upset about what's going on. And he tells him he's going to try to find somebody else to take the kid's place since he's already there in Canada and he has to wait a few days to get a ticket back. So, yeah, a real compassionate fella. But we also see that he goes into the bathroom take a tinkle and he notices an ad board with all these ads and like job postings and stuff, and he sees a letter from an old man who's enjoyed a long life at sea, and basically he just entails in the letter that he has a lot of interesting stories to tell. And I don't know, I'm gonna insert the scene, y'all can see what I'm talking about. Anyway, so Wallace is like, oh yeah, finally got somebody to, you know, got somebody to take the other kid's place. Like, this trip is in a complete waste. So he calls the dude up and plans to meet with him. So boom, next scene, he's in the gas station talking very loudly to the dude, the old man, and like trying to meet up with him. The old man says he's in Bifrost, which by the way, I don't know if I mentioned, but right now Wallace is in Manitoba, Manitoba. Manitoba, Canada. And the old man says that he's in Bifrost. So he asks the two store clerks, like, hey, how far is Bifrost from here? And they're like, oh, it's about 2 hours away. Again, mind you, this is important. He's saying all of this very loudly, asking them questions. It's going to come up later. Anyway, so he's on the way there, and the ad also mentioned that the old man will offer room and board just in exchange for like some chores that whoever I guess answers the ad will do for him since he's wheelchair bound. But anyway, so Wallace finally pulls up to the house in Bifrost, which by the way is called Pippi Hill. That's not really important. I just thought it was funny. But he finds out that this old man's name is Mr. Howard. And immediately he's giving off super weirdo vibes. Like, he's talking in like a very interesting way. He's like keeps referencing like authors and all this weird stuff. Like, he's not giving normal vibes. He's red flags. But you know, Wallace is, he's not picking up on it. So he immediately accepts some suspicious tea that Mr. Howard gives him. And obviously, like, y'all can put two and two together. That tea was laced with something. And I'm getting ahead of myself though. Okay, pause. Go back. Wallace is talking with Mr. Howard. He's sipping on the tea, and Mr. Howard is telling him that he's Wallace is telling Mr. Howard that he's there to get a story for his podcast. He's telling him about his podcast with Teddy. And actually, that wasn't important. Anyway, so Wallace is drinking the tea. Just know they're having a conversation. Okay, he's telling him about the podcast. Mr. Howard is telling him about his life and his stories and how he's been stranded at sea, yada, yada, yada. And the whole time Wallace is sitting there like, oh my gosh, this tea is so good. I never had tea like this before. And Mr. Howard is like, and anyway, this is, I don't want to say completely random, but it's a little bit of but Wallace notices that Mr. Howard has like a giant walrus PP displayed in his house.
Walrus cock.
Shut up.
I'm a dirty boy, aren't I?
And he's like, oh wow, why do you have this? And then that's when Mr. Howard starts telling him about how he was lost at sea. And we go into some backstory here, but basically Mr. Howard and his homies were in search of a great Siberian white shark or something in some Russian seas. And most of his homies died because the ship collided with an iceberg. But so he was stranded in the Russian Sea. And Mr. Howard thought he was alone at sea, but something moved past him in the water, so he got scared. He climbed into a little island rock thingy. He looked up and saw a walrus. He was like, "This is my savior. Thank you, Mr. Tusk." He really did name him Mr. Tusk, by the way. I'm not just saying that. And apparently, he was stuck at sea with Mr. Tusk for 6 months, and this was like his bestie, his dog, his best friend. So yeah, that's basically that end of that story. Because then by this point, Wallace is like, because the tea is kicking in. He just realized now that Mr. Howard Bill Cosby him, and then boom, scene over. Wakes up. Actually, there's a flashback right here. Now, I forgot to mention this because it didn't seem important at the time, but as Wallace is like getting off the plane, leaving the airport, he gets a call from an alley we see on his phone, but he hang up on her, not in the mood. So now, flashback. We see him in Allie, and we find out Allie is his girlfriend. And basically, we're just getting this whole scene, I guess, is to like show more on Wallace's character. He's not a great fellow, so you're not gonna feel bad. But anyway, we see him and Allie kind of like messing around, doing the two-hand tango, and Allie stops, and basically this whole scene is just so we have that whole spiel like, oh, I miss the old you, like now that you got money, you just act so different. And he's like, the old me was a loser and broke and blah blah blah. And that's basically all that scene was for. Like we just get to find out who Allie is, and we see that he used to be a better person, and then now he got money and he's not. And y'all know what Young Nudie said.
Ooh wee, look what that money make a bitch do.
Oh, and I also forgot to point out an important thing in that scene. Ali asked to go with him to Canada, but he was like, no, because every time we hang out, like Teddy gets kind of weird and jealous. Like, who knows why he does that? Obviously, Wallace is not a good, like, he is not good on picking up vibes. Because he was not picking up none of these vibes from nobody in this movie. But anywho, so now we flash back to Walrus. Oops. Now we flash back to Wallace and Mr. What did I say this dude's name was? Mr. Howard. We see Wallace wake up from his Bill Cosby tea nap, and he's like very disoriented. He has a drink in his hand, and basically, Mr. Howard is feeding him some bull, basically telling him like, yeah, by the way, like when you were asleep in your tea nap, I just want you to know that a brown recluse spider bit you, and that's why you passed out. It wasn't my suspicious Bill Cosby tea that I gave you. It actually was a brown recluse spider. It bit you. You passed out. The doctor came and he put something in your spine, which is why you can't feel your legs right now. Also, by the way, like some type of spinal injection. But also, the poison went so far that the I guess extent of the damage was so drastic that we had to cut off your leg. By this point, Wallace looks down. He notices that he's missing a leg and that he cannot feel his other leg. And obviously, he's freaking out. He's like, "Whoa, what the heck? Like, this is not from a spider. I want to talk to this doctor that apparently came here." Like, freaking out as you would if you woke up with minus one leg. Um, but yeah, he's freaking out. Boom, into that scene. Then the next scene, we see Mr. Howard and Wallace had dinner. You know the scene, two different sides of a very long table. Wallace is sitting there all salty because he's missing his leg, and now he's saying he can't like really move his body at all, and he can't feel his arms because Mr. Howard's like, "Why are you not eating?" He's like, "I can't feel my arms." Ho. But nah, he didn't really say that, but that's the vibes he was giving. But anyways, now Mr. Howard is like, "Oh, it's because of the morphine for the spider bite." Duh, like he's still going with this spider bite bit. Like, anyways, plus is kind of basically just asking questions. He's like, "This is not making sense to me. The math is not mathing." But Mr. Howard is like, "Shh, what's a spider?" But I think at this point, Wallace is starting to be like, this is a crazy nigga. So he like starts going off at the mouth at him, like talking all crazy, going off at the mouth, like you're crazy. I'm gonna call the police on you, yada yada yada. Next thing you know, Mr. Howard gets up, slaps this nigga, pop, which was actually kind of funny. It's one of the funny parts of the movie to me because like, why did he do that? But anyway, and then this is when the real story comes out, which I just like side tangent. I need to like, how do you create a story like this in your mind? Like, I don't know if this movie is based off of a book. I don't know if like somebody just thought of this, but I just have questions. Because if you were to blindly show me this movie, I didn't know the title, like I didn't have any context of what was going to happen, I would never expect for it to go here. But basically, we end up finding out that apparently for some time, Mr. Howard has been building a walrus suit, and he believes that with some modifications, Wallace will fit into it perfectly, which is why he cut off one of his legs. Which, low-key, I'm like, I don't know why he just didn't do both legs at the same time, because, or does he need one of the legs for the tail of the walrus? Anyways, he tells him he's building a walrus suit and he needs somebody to go into it. Obviously, that was the obvious conclusion. And basically, while Wallace is in this suit, he better act like a walrus. Like, you better communicate like a walrus. You're gonna be a walrus. And then obviously Wallace starts crying because, like, imagine somebody telling you they're gonna make you a walrus. You will cry. I will probably cry. And then Mr. Howard starts mocking him crying, which was kind of funny. But yeah, then we flash back again to Allie. And she's having some type of like, she's looking in the camera like this, talking to somebody, but she's having like an internal monologue. Well, no, she's saying it out loud. It's not an internal monologue, but she's having like an introspective monologue, basically just talking about like how she hates Wallace for treating her like a $2 dirty whore, cheating on her with multiple women. And she's happy her dad is not alive to see basically how she's letting herself be treated and all of this. And but basically she's like, but I have you. You're helping me through it. I'm so happy I have you. And anyways, I don't remember what I was saying. Oh, basically, I think I was saying at this point, if you have common sense, that you knew that Ellie and Teddy was messing around. So basically, we found out the person that she's talking to was indeed Teddy, obviously. So, anyways, her and Teddy go back to doing the two-hand tango, and I guess that's we put two and two together. That's why Allie couldn't go to Canada with Wallace, because Teddy would have been jealous, and that's why he gets jealous when they hang out, because they're actually. So anyways, back at the house, while they're together, Allie does decide to call him, because she's like, dang, we actually haven't heard from Wallace in a few days though, even though she literally just said I hate this nigga, but like she still cares about him. And she calls him, he doesn't answer, but it allows him to find his phone. So he goes to the phone, he literally picks her right after she calls him, and he's leaving her voicemail like, help, I got kidnapped, I'm literally about to get murdered, you know, useful information. And he also tries to call Wallace, but he doesn't answer. He tries to call Teddy, but Teddy doesn't answer. And he sees the phone ring and he just ignores it. It'd be like that sometimes. But anywho, and then while he's trying to leave Teddy a message too, he gets mocked again by Mr. Howard. By this point, Mr. Howard beating dad. Okay. Um, and basically now Mr. Howard's fed up. He's like, look, tired of you. If you want to keep living, you're gonna live as a walrus, or you're not gonna live at all. Period. And he literally says that. He was standing on business. It's like, you're gonna be a walrus. So this next part of this movie, this is what I like to call part two. The title,
What? What the
because I forgot to mention this movie is like almost 2 hours long. It's like an hour 45 minutes, which doesn't sound that long, but like for a movie about trying to turn somebody into a walrus and you cut off one of their legs within like the first 20 minutes, I mean, it's only so much walrus surgery that you got to do. It was kind of dragging. They definitely could have cut off like a good, I feel like 20 minutes out the movie, maybe 15. But anywho, this is where it went from okay, this kind of strange to this is weird. This is a very weird, strange movie. But now, part two. By the way, this movie is not split into parts. I just split it into parts myself because I was like, what is going on here? But the next morning, Allie finally gets up from her little rendezvous with Teddy and she notices that she got the voicemail from Wallace. She listens to it. She's like, oh my God, Teddy listened to this voicemail. Then they're alarmed because they realize Wallace is now kidnapped. Between also in this part of the movie, we're going to be cutting back and forth from Allie and Teddy and Wallace and Mr. Howard alive. So like if it's not me, it's the movie. Anyway, cut back to Mr. Howard and Wallace. And now we see Mr. Howard is finishing up his walrus surgeries with his arm fins and basically doing surgery on him, telling him the rest of his backstory. Now we find out he was an orphan, something. It was a long, very boring backstory. He was an orphan or something. His parents got murked, and because of that, he was placed in the orphanage. But then it ended up turning into an insane asylum for some reason, monetary reasons. And because he was basically put into an insane asylum with insane niggas, he was beaten, tortured, raped. He had things put in his mouth. He was basically just put through it. But at 15, he escaped on a boat, hence his life at sea. He never looked back. And he started hanging out with walruses. And because of this, though, he feels like men are the real savages. Walruses are just walruses. And at this point, we see by the time he tells this whole long story, we see the finished surgery product. Zooby, zooby, zoo. I'm trying to finish this with no storage, so please, iPhone, please, Lord, let me finish recording this. Anyways, like I say, he's basically full walrus now. Um, Flashback to Teddy and Allie. They're now in Canada. They're on the phone with the police trying to locate Wallace, asking people if they've seen him, yada yada. Once again, the angle has changed. I don't remember what I was saying. Allie and Teddy talking to the police, trying to find Wallace. Flashback to Wallace and Mr. Howard. Wallace wakes up screaming again after his Walrus. Wallace wakes up screaming again after his full walrus surgery. And this time he's in the walrus suit full. Trying to say Wallace and Walrus. It is very hard. That's probably why they named that nigga Wallace. Anyways, he's fully chained to like some rocks, and now he's fully in the walrus suit. He is now Wallace the Walrus. And yeah, basically, Miss Howard's like, now that you're a walrus for real, you're gonna learn how to swim like a walrus. Starts dragging him under the water in his walrus suit. And when he's under there, he starts freaking out because he sees another like dead walrus person in a suit, and he's like, ah. Cut back to Allie and Teddy. Basically, they got a lead from the detective. I forgot to mention that, but he hooks them up with this detective, Guy Luponce, who is played by Johnny Depp, which I love me some Johnny Depp. But I'm not gonna lie, he's doing a little much in this role. But the detective is, I'm gonna just call him the detective. Basically, he tells Teddy and Allie that he's been hunting Mr. Howard for years. He's a serial killer. He got 23 bodies, doing King Bond numbers. Okay. He sacrificed his life trying to find a serial killer. So now he's excited to help them because he can get the chance to get to Mr. Howard. And he's like, if we don't get to Wallace right now, he's about to be number 24. So they all get together. They go on the way to Pippi Hill. Oh, wait, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. They get together and they get together. They're on the way to the next lead. Cut back. I told y'all it's a lot of back and forth at this point in the movie. Cut back to Wallace and Mr. Howard. And again, he's still like doing this Walrus rehab program for Wallace. So he throws a fish at him. He's like, eat it, ho. Eat the fish. So at first he's like, but then he starts going crazy like the big back walrus that he is on this little raw fish. And I think this symbolizes here that the walrification is complete. And Mr. Howard just sitting there like, mm-hmm, that's my Mr. Tusk right there. Yeah, this is where, like I said, it was getting very weird. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. But anywho, um, more weird walrus stuff happens. It's just like very much him trying to make him be a walrus, like nothing crazy. But basically, the only other thing we really find out in these scenes is that I guess why Mr. Howard is so bent on making walrus niggas is because he ended up eating Mr. Tusk when he was stranded on the island with him for 6 months because he needed food. And I guess he feels very badly about that. So instead of like seeking therapy or just making himself a walrus, he's just been trying to create walruses to fill that Mr. Tusk void. So Wallace has become the new Mr. Tusk. Now, again, cut back to Allie, Teddy, and now Detective. They ended up going to like, I forgot how they got here, but they ended up finding the gas station that Wallace had went to when he was talking really loud on the phone when I was telling y'all pay attention. And they talked to the clerks, and the clerks remember like, oh yeah, he was going to Bifrost to talk to this dude, blah blah blah. So that's how they get the address for Pippi Hill. So they finally pull up to Pippi Hill, got their guns, they ready to go, ready to pull up on Mr. Howard, get Wallace back. But while this is happening simultaneously. The detective gives him some guns. It's like, here, we're about to pull up on Mr. Howard, give him a pow pow. But also, for some reason, this is the part where I was like, well, this whole movie, I'm just keep saying this is the part where it got weird. This has been weird. But for some reason, because Mr. Howard, I guess, felt bad about killing Mr. Tusk and eating him, he decides the only right way to go about this whole life thing is for him to get in his own walrus suit that he had this whole time. Which again just goes back to my other point. Why did he have to like cut all his legs and do all of this surgery to fit in the walrus suit? Because he literally shows in this scene that you can just fit in the walrus suit regularly. Because I'm pretty sure he didn't cut off his own limbs and then crawl into the suit. Like he just could have put him in there. I don't know. I just felt like the cutting and cutting his legs off and such was unnecessary. But hey, that's just me. Anywho, he gets in his own walrus suit and he's like, now we're gonna have a walrus rumble. Like, you're gonna have to fight me because Mr. Tusk deserves to have his chance to beat me down, I guess, because I killed him. So then they start having a walrus fight. And again, all of this is happening. Allie and Teddy are now in the house. It's like cutting back and forth of them looking for him in the house in a walrus fight. So finally, Wallace has had enough. He starts tusking him, basically stabbing him with his tusks, kills him. And then Mr. Howard is like, ah, yes, this is exactly how I wanted to die. Thank you for completing my life's wish of dying by walrus. Just as this happens, Allie and Teddy walk in. They see Wallace, and he's full walrus now. He's like, like, I don't know. I don't think walruses even make that sound. I don't know why he's doing that, but he's just completely gone like crazy. Fully walrus, and they're crying. They're sad. Like they realize it's too late. So we cut to 1 year later. We see Teddy and Allie pull up to an exotic animal sanctuary, which is now Wallace's new home. And they bring him a nice little fishy treat. throw it at him. At first, he's not trying to come out. They're like, please, Wallace, we came all this way to see you. Please come out. He comes out, throw the fish at him. He eats it. And the movie ends as we see one little walrus tear come out of Wallace's eye as he looks up at his friends. And then he backs back up into his little Wallace house. And that's it. Final thoughts. That movie changed me as a person. I don't know if it was for the better, but I have been changed. And like I said, I just have so many questions, but I fear I don't want to know the answers. Because again, big question mark. What do you mean based on actual events? Like, what do you mean? Because, what do you mean? But also, again, who well, I guess that answers the question because, like, how do you think of something like that unless it's some like based on the actual event? Like, I don't know. You'll just be like, I want to make a movie about somebody turning into a walrus, and the fact that they let this movie happen, I don't know. I just have a lot of questions. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was an interesting movie. I got to give it that. It was original idea. Definitely nothing else out there like it. Like I said, I feel like it was a little long in some parts, especially towards the end. Even though I love Johnny Depp with his character, it definitely was dragging a little bit with like his monologues, and them trying to like give him comedic relief, I guess. But hey, I mean, if you don't got nothing else to do, you want to watch an interesting movie, watch Tusk. But yeah, that's all I got to say. More reviews will be coming, and thank you for watching. Bye.